It's 6 o'clock. We call the meeting to order. Call has been taken digitally. This meeting of the Ripon Area School District Board of Education has been properly noticed in accordance with the open meeting law and state statute 19.84 and related legal references. We'd like to start with our district vision, one of Wisconsin's finest school districts, fostering excellence for all through innovation. So the first item of business today is to recognize the Noetic math students, all the ones who have done well. Some of the statistics for everybody. There are 31,281 students in the nation who competed in grades 2 through 8. That's from 577 schools in 42 states. The National Honor Roll is for students who score in the top 10% of the nation. And we have one here, that would be Parker Dalzell, who's in 5th grade. Is Parker here? No, but I think we should all give Parker some applause. National Honorable Mention is scoring in the top 50% of the nation. And we have 8 second graders. There were 3,322 national competitors. We have 8 third graders, 5,298 national competitors. 8 fourth graders, 6,981 national competitors. 11 fifth graders, 7,002 national competitors. And 8 sixth graders, 4,535 national competitors. So, congratulations to everybody. I'm not sure, there's too many, I think, to come up all at once, so I think what I'm going to have to do is come up by grade level, and I'm going to announce the names of everybody at each grade level. As we do this, we don't obviously have them all here, so when you do get up, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself, but we'll start with second grade. Second grade honorable mention, Annabeth Nell, Braxton Baker, Cole McDonald, Henry Rodriguez, Jackson Steincypher, Joel Murphy, Peyton Kubista, and Weston Mendez. We've got 4 here. And can you guys, because I wasn't looking when I read the names out, so can you guys introduce yourself to everybody?
Hello, my name is Braxton. My name is Cole. My name is Weston.
Okay, and we've got some certificates for you to recognize your good work. So, Braxton. Cool. Applause for all of them. You're welcome. Congratulations, guys. You can sit down. In 3rd grade, we had Avery Forbes Norman, Elliot Truesdale, Hazel Martin, Irva Patel, Pearson Gavis, Rowan O'Con, Skylar Martin, and Zayden Preston. And so, which 2 are you? Introduce yourselves. Go ahead.
I'm here.
Okay. Your friends.
Sure.
Good job. In fourth grade, Benjamin Napier, Calvin Willoughby, Colin Patterson, Luke Engel, Lydia Weiss, Maya Byro, Nathaniel Cartagena, and Piper Millen.
My name is Lydia. My name is Ben.
Lydia and Ben. Go, Ben. In fifth grade, Addison Krantz, Archer Prowitz, Carter DeBoer, Carter Moniz, Emma Brzezinski, Gavin Triller, Keegan Michaels, Diana Gack, Levi McDonald, Naomi Dalvig, and Porter Resch. So go ahead.
I'm Izzy. I'm Carter. I'm also Carter. I'm Naomi.
I'm not sure.
Okay. Carter, and Keegan, and Naomi, and Levi. All right, thank you, Levi.
Now I gotta get them all straight. All right, we'll start with Levi. So, congratulations.
Thank you.
Keegan, I know. Congratulations. And which Carter DeBoer? Moniz. Carter Moniz. Congratulations. And Carter DeBoer. Congratulations, Carter. And in sixth grade, Aiden Boyer, Bentley Wiesner, Brandon Adams, Carlos Schaefer, Charlotte Helm, Emily Clements, Peyton Goldenboom, and Preston Byer. So while I'm getting these, he's getting these sorted out, tell us something about the experience, the test.
I guess kind of did it. Like, honestly, I'm kind of really sick of it in a way, but I'm like, man, I just want to learn. And then suddenly I'm just here.
You got two more years now, too.
Also, I didn't study. Yeah, but I still got your thing. Yeah, me neither. I did not study there at all. I don't know study it.
Well, that's good though, because that means you really understand what you're doing. Okay, so we've got Preston, and we've got, what was your name again? And we have Charlotte Moon. And then we have Bentley. All right. So, Bentley. Good job.
I'm so high. I ended up here.
No more than you can do.
I know high.
job to all of you. Excellent.
That just happened, I guess.
And thank all families for coming out tonight to recognize the students.
I want to sleep more. I don't sleep. I don't want to sleep.
So we had another recognition postponed.
If I fall asleep,
Tom
I'm actually
Stelmacher.
good. I
So for
want
those
to
who are
sleep.
here, this is, has 40 years of service on the school board. And so there's an award from that from the organization, but we'll wait until. Did some damage to his back. Boy, this seems something that shouldn't be. Sciatica has kicked in. Do we have any written comments?
We do not.
Anybody signed up to speak? No. So is there any item on the, anything with the order of items on the agenda that anybody would like to change? If not, we'll accept it as presented. And move on to announcement of contributions to the district.
For those this evening, the Ripon Booster Club donated $6,250 to new batting cages at Ripon High School. And Justin Krieger and Julie Ketter donated over $250 to the REF Scholarship Fund. And then the following donations were all $250 to the Ripon Education Fund program. And so that was the class of 1974, Norton and Diane Kraus, Gary and Cynthia Berker, Patty and Esther Lori, Gary Rodman, Amy Fenner, Marilyn Patrick, Philip and Cindy Cody, Curtis and Denise Martinez, Stephen and Bridget Yeomans, Timothy and Lynn McCarthy, Harlow and Diane Riker, Luann Marker Van Lannen, Peter and Emily Sensenbrenner, Canoe Enterprises, LLC, Circus and Surround, Dale Baird, Alice and Emily Miner, Betsy Blazek, Thomas Leonard and Catherine Hill, Lois Quinney, Thomas and Mary Avery, Julie and Julianne, Gary and Julianne Ward, Andy and Jean Like, and the Quinney family. And the Quinney family went to the Quinney Family Fund, which is a special fund within the Ripon Education Foundation. So again, very thankful for all those donations.
So we have a special presentation before we get to business, well, before we get to the student representative in business, this year's mid-year dashboard.
So we like to take this opportunity during this board meeting every year to update the board on our progress that we have made academically, behaviorally, in regard to attendance. And kind of share with you, I guess, some of our key highlights that we have found so far, as well as some of our next steps that we hope to take for the remainder of the school year. So I am surrounded by our principals as well as directors. We'll start with our elementary data to begin with. We know that there is a lot of data to kind of comb through. We're not going to necessarily get into the specific data unless, of course, you have questions. I guess I would welcome our principals to be able to share just some of those key findings and celebrations. And then we are certainly here to answer any questions that you might have for us tonight. So we will go ahead, Jolene, and start with our elementary, our 4K through 2 profile, starting with our literacy data first.
So some key celebrations or findings there were that students at all grade levels are showing growth from the fall to the winter. There's good growth there. And then overall the scores, the percentages are very close to last year's review report. So maintaining that achievement that we had set last year and continuing that this year. Next steps for literacy is to continue to incorporate best practices during universal instruction to encourage optimal growth. Keeping that PD focus on the science of reading, encouraging summer school participation for those students that might need that, and then monitoring progress in area literacy to allow staff to be responsive to the end of the year goals that they've set our grade levels in their classrooms.
Wonderful. We spent our entire morning with our 4K through 5 teachers actually learning all about the science of reading and the Act 20 and things, so lots to celebrate. Our next slide really focuses on our new required literacy screener, which is our Ames Web Plus. I do have Jill here, our reading specialist, who is also here to answer any questions that you might have about this report. This data looks a little bit different than some of our other slides, but the intent of this is to really show by grade level kind of where we landed in terms of percentages of students that fell kind of below that 25th percentile and where kids are at above that 25th percentile. As a reminder, any student that did flag on the winter screener who flagged below that 25th percentile, it did require us to write a personalized reading plan as well as implement some additional diagnostics to determine what types of supports the students would need. So again, I'm not going to go into necessarily the specific data, but we will highlight some of our key findings and then certainly answer any questions. The fall screener was the first required screener, or I mean the winter, I'm sorry. You may recall that we did do kind of a trial run in the fall just to kind of see where our kids would fall, and actually our data does reflect very similar results from the fall to the winter. I will say that at each of the windows, the fall, winter, and spring, the benchmarks do get progressively harder or higher. So that also may impact where our students landed. I don't know, Jill, if there's any key findings that you want to highlight?
One thing that we did note, there continues to be a high need for support for students in first and second grade. Some of those students are being supported by interventionists, and some of them are being supported through small group work with their teacher in their classroom. We are working continually to figure out the best way to streamline and improve the screening and diagnostic process. We want to get that done quickly. We have a 10-15 day time window set by the state, which is really tight. But we also want to limit how much time we're taking teachers away from their instructional time to give assessments. So we're working on the best way to do that and how to balance those two pieces. And then we have learned a lot going through the process of writing the personalized reading plans and sending them out, and want to continue to make sure that those are aligned with Act 20's requirements and make them as easy for parents to read as we can.
Our spring screener.
Can I ask a question? I'm sorry. With the personalized reading plans, do you have a form that like came from DPI, or is it something that?
So we had the requirements of all the parts that needed to be in there from DPI, and then we developed using Google, we developed a form that we were able to add students' information, add their scores. It had some drop-down menu pieces to make it a little bit faster to fill out for students. And then we got to beta test a DocuSign type opportunity for parents. So we sent it home requesting their signature and they responded and
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Could we see that? I mean, would that be something that you could send us or no?
I can,
Because you don't have to do it right now.
yeah, we could share a blank form with you.
That would be
so that you
great,
can
yeah.
see what it looks like.
I just
We
am curious.
also did, if the board is interested in this, we didn't post those yet. So I created a series of 4 short videos for parents that explain what the background for the Act 20 law, the screeners and diagnostics, what those are, the personalized reading plan, what it, like walking through the steps and what it looks like. So we have some of that available too, and we finished it in time to like get those out to parents. We haven't posted them on the website yet, but that was our goal, and we
I
can do
would
that
love
and
to
share
see
that
that.
as well.
I think those were shared as
It
weekly
just-
updates.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
and they are short, like between 3 and each one is between 3 and 6 minutes. So.
Thank you.
And we did conduct an informational session for Act 20 also to parents. Didn't get quite the turnout we had hoped, but hopefully by creating that series of videos and helping parents and our community really understand the dynamics of it, that would be helpful. As Jill mentioned, the turnaround for the screening and the diagnostics and writing the personalized reading plan is very, very quick. Within 15 days, we have to have everything out to parents and communicating the results. So we are very strategic in our plan for doing this assessment. Our spring assessment, we were actually just discussing this today, actually will be conducted already that week after we come back from spring break. Because we have to do it 45 calendar days before the end of the school year. So our final screener, the spring screener, will take place already shortly after spring break. So we recognize it's a lot of assessments. We are trying to take that, I want to say burden, but that off of our teachers' plate so that they can continue that universal instruction as much as possible. But we certainly recognize then that that does impact our interventionists who are doing those strategic interventions too. So it's a lot, and I appreciate all the work that everybody is doing to assist with that.
I have another question, just as a reminder. So these results, as well as the ones in the spring, will be sent to the DPI. So they have this copy, and then they're looking for, like, for the next, are they looking for improvement already in the spring?
Yeah, it's basically like our Wisconsin Forward results, our ACT results, all of that gets reported to the state too in an online platform. So the state has access to our INSWA Plus dashboard, and that is what they use to get the data. They certainly will be, yes, looking at that across the state of Wisconsin, and then we certainly look at that as normative data across the nation too, to see where Wisconsin compares with other states.
So then next year, we'll have a fall, 2 in the fall and 2 in the spring. So are there any, what is the expectation, or is there a punishment attached? I can't remember. I don't wanna call it a punishment, I can't think of anything else to call it. But when you have a mandate like this, what is it just that the students, hopefully so many graduate out of the personal plan? And are those numbers set at the state?
That is the goal. At this point, the literacy screener results are not going to be used on our accountability reports that we also get from DPI at this point. There's just so many moving pieces yet, and I think the state is still trying to figure that out as well. Yes, the goal, of course, is to try to help every student get above that 25th percentile. But there are a lot of dynamics that fit into that too, because every student does need to take the assessment. Students who are identified in special education, nonverbal students, I mean, we're talking every student. So we have to develop a plan on how to be able to administer the screener and diagnostics to all students. So, thanks.
Were we surprised? I mean, we did this in the fall, so we're not surprised completely, but when it happened in the fall, were we surprised at the percentage of the student classes that were below the 25th, at or below the 25th percentile? Or was that something that we would have predicted just because that's the way it usually is for me?
I would say we were hoping that the results would be a little higher. They're very comparable to what we discovered in the fall, and as I said, the winter benchmarks are higher. So we will notice that in the spring too, that our spring benchmarks will be higher. What I can share is that in comparing districts across the state, it is very comparable. Many districts are seeing much of the same results. Part of that is, for many of our earliest learners, kindergarten, first grade, the format of the testing is a completely new process, so that has a definite impact on it, which is why we chose to do the fall screener and trying to make it a little bit easier. So there are definitely certain things that impact testing. And we hope that that will improve along with the learning that we are doing in terms of instructional practices with students. Okay, so we will move on to the literacy data, the iReady data from our students in grades 3 through 5.
So we're seeing a definite increase in the number of students who are on or above grade level, as noted in the green. The data is pretty comparable to last year's grades as well. There's also, the students in red are shrinking, and in 3rd and 4th grade, we have less than 20% below the grade level in the red bands. So that's definitely a plus. As far as our next steps go, we're continuing to do the Act 20 training through Cox Campus and the CISA 6 support, which we did this morning, as Chrissy mentioned. Even though this is a pre-K 3 initiative, our 4th and 5th grade teachers are also going through all of that training so that they can support a wide variety of learners, that they have in their classrooms. We also continue to tailor interventions to make the greatest gains possible with kids.
It has also been interesting for us to compare the students who are flagging in our iReady data compared to our IMSWeb Plus data. We are finding that many of the students who fall into that red category are the students who are flagging in our IMSWeb data. However, there are some that are kind of an anomaly, and we are looking to compare the two and trying to figure out how to best support our students who are showing up on the screener for sure.
I think that you hit something though, when it's the type of test and the methodology, I think that does have an impact on the whole student score.
Absolutely. We felt like that very much, especially for first graders, that at the mid-year, they used an oral reading fluency on IMSWeb, and that's not a test we have in the past typically used in, especially at first grade. So it was definitely learning for us, learning for the kids, learning for the teachers, all about like how that impacts our instruction, because it's not a particular measure we've used in the past.
Okay, so the next slide just focuses on our intervention data at the K2 level. We, as you may be aware, we do have structured literacy intervention support at our K2 and our 3-5 buildings. And this data really kind of highlights the number of students that are being served in literacy intervention. Those that are in that tier 3, which is that most intensive level of support. Typically the students who are in that tier 3 do receive intervention support from our specialists, from our interventionists. And then some of our students in that tier 2 level are getting that support through their classroom teachers, through their win time, or through small group as well.
And then at kindergarten,
Yeah.
we utilize the Reading Core tutoring program. There, the particular interventions that they use in that tutoring program meet and align actually very well with the Act 20 science aligned requirements. And so the majority of our kindergarten students that need support are receiving that through the reading core tutoring, which is
We are very
So
grateful
wonderful.
for that support, and we hope that we will be able to continue that. We also offer reading core tutoring with our third graders as well. And again, really hope that that level of support will be able to continue into the future. The next slide really just focuses on the data regarding our specialized services. So it takes a look at special education, our English learners, and our gifted and talented program at the 4K through 2 level. So again, I'm not going to go into the data itself, just kind of highlighting so that you can really see the number of students that are served in each of those different programs. While we do not offer specific formalized services for 4K through 2 students in the area of GT, as you saw tonight, they do participate in the What If Math. And Jessica Huser, our GT teacher, serves as a resource for our teachers and does provide support on an estimated basis with our students in 2nd grade as well. You can go on to the next one, Jillian.
All right, so the same types of data points that we've been looking at for the last few years, it's been really enjoyable to now finally start to build some trends in data and actually have some numbers to compare across the years. Again, you can see our hard numbers there, and if you want to reference that reminder on the right-hand side about what are people service contacts or what constitutes one of those contacts, you can do that there. And you'll see this trend throughout all of our buildings. One key point in each building is we've seen those behavior referral numbers increase. And again, we've talked about this before, not necessarily a bad thing. We're doing a really nice job this year with the use of Project Climber, which if you'll remember was one of our purchases this last summer, a data warehouse that has just been really instrumental in helping us shape what our interventions look like. We've really started to put some great behavioral data in there. And then Jill as well, we're going to be looking at the academic intervention data now being in there. We've seen some really positive uses for it. So with that, just like anything, when you roll out something new and as we've improved each year, we've seen that the data points slowly climb because I think we're doing a really good job collecting that data, which has then been instrumental as we triangulate it as we meet as a team and start to make decisions around what types of things our school counselors are teaching, what types of things our teachers are doing at that universal level. It feels like we're finally making some headway with the behavioral data that we're collecting. And then for this particular building, if you'll remember back to this time last year, we were actually just making 2 critical mid-year hires for our pupil services department. So prior to that, we were down a behavior interventionist and a school counselor. So obviously those numbers were much smaller this time last year. Now we have 2 additional full-time employees in our department. And then as far as next steps, I should back up, health office visits, I decided to include that data point, so this will be interesting for us to really start monitoring over the coming years. One thing that we are right in the middle of doing is what we're calling our advanced medical training. So we are very blessed with some really wonderful nurses in our district, but they can't do everything. So our school RN, Jamie Weir and myself are looking to train more staff on being able to kind of be those backup people and are comfortable jumping into a more, I'll say, high stakes medical situation than our typical Band-Aids and ice packs and things. So we had a really good showing of staff who said I would feel comfortable and confident learning how to, for example, give diabetic care to a student. So that's an exciting thing that again you'll see in this section across all of our buildings. And then at our elementary level, attendance and truancy and attendance have been a really big focus for us this year. I should say, caring for our students who are having attendance-related issues in an effort to try to avoid truancy. We have added to kind of that holistic approach to the student who is struggling with attendance-related matters, especially at the elementary level. It's a parent problem a lot of times. It's not necessarily, it can be, but it's not necessarily at the hands of those students. So Sean and Jesse do an amazing job leading the pupil services teams in their buildings with those attendance-related meetings with families. And the goal of those meetings, of course, isn't to say, you are about to get a truancy fine, it's to say, what can we do to make sure that your child gets to school each day? And so we've had some really exciting successes with different families in our district, just being able to partner with them and make sure that their child is able to attend school each day. Questions about anything pupil services related?
We will move into the math data. Again, currently the diagnostic that we use to measure progress is our iReady, and we have outlined our 4K through 2 math data. Sean, you want to share?
Yeah, so some key findings looking at the IRA data from that. Students are showing good growth when comparing the fall data to winter again, so we're seeing that growth throughout this school year. But another celebration was that when looking at last year's mid-year report and this year's mid-year report, this year's current students are outperforming last year's students at this point in time. And then just next steps are for those students that aren't, we would really highly encourage that summer school program to help to increase those skills.
And our 3-5.
In the area of math, our 4th and 5th graders have more than 50% of the students at or above grade level. We should note that a couple of the really big units for 3rd graders, like fractions and measurement, haven't come up yet. So we're hoping to see that green increase after they have access to that curriculum. The entire building is piloting the new version of Bridges, which is the materials we've used, but we have the updated version. So that's been really good as far as our next steps. And the teachers are also utilizing the pre-tests and being able to group students based on their needs so that they get the best instruction necessary for them.
Our next slide, again, highlights the academic intervention at the 3-5 level. At Murray Park West, we are fortunate that we not only have reading intervention, we do have our EL teacher who does also offer some math intervention support. Not nearly as much as we would like, but we are blessed to be able to have her be able to do that. So again, this data really just shows the number of students who are in each of those different tiers who are receiving very intensive support, and the number of students who may be receiving additional support within their classrooms through the help of their teachers and in small groups. This slide, again, just highlights our specialized services for our students in grades 3-5. Again, noting our special education, our English learners, and our gifted and talented program. And then back to our pupil service data for 3-5.
So you'll notice a lot of those same themes, again, behavior referrals. What I would just add to our key findings from Murray Park, we've been able to pilot a couple of programs. One is Everyday Speech and Close Gap. These are really exciting tools. One of them, we were actually Everyday Speech, we were contacted to ask if we would be a pilot district. So we've been able to roll that out. Essentially what it is it's a tool or a resource for folks like our behavior interventionists. So the example that I'll give, if we're having a student who's having some troubles like on the bus and we need to reteach some behaviors, it's kind of cool, you'll just type in bus, for example, and you'll get some really nice guided videos and talking points and actual lessons that our behavior interventionists and school counselors can work on with our students. So that has been a really exciting success. Close Gap is actually a program that our students can use to check in each day and tell us how are you doing. Again, another, first of all, great data point for our school counselor to be able to monitor with certain students, but also gives some of those more internalizing students an opportunity who wouldn't otherwise maybe seek out our school counselor to say, hey, I could use a check-in today. So those are some exciting things happening at Murray Park. Again, Murray Park and Quest, again, that medical training and attendance are also things that we're working on at that 3-5 level.
I just have a question about the attendance. Obviously, there are families that have severe problems with getting their kids to school. But just in general, how do these percentages compare? Because I wouldn't expect 100%. There's so many people sick, I don't want them in school.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm just curious how this actually compares with,
So we are slightly above the other districts within Wisconsin. We actually just had an opportunity, well, I suppose it was a handful of months ago at this point, but to go to a workshop and compare, they really helped us understand data from that lens of our report card that we get. And so these are the federal percentages for attendance rates. That's where you can measure that in a lot of different ways. We always just go with that federal definition for attendance. But it was exciting to see that we are doing slightly better, and I would agree with you, 100% would also have, there are some schools that get close and I go, how are you reporting your attendance data? That's been another thing for, I would say, the last 2 years. We are really working hard to make sure what we're reporting is very accurate down to like the hour. And so that's been, and then we'll have a new shift of what that looks like for this coming school year. We've been able to do some work again with CISA and dig into how to collect the best possible attendance, which doesn't always mean, like you said, 100%. So it's a data point, it might be a little bit skewed because we're just told what we have to report, we're not told how we have to collect that data by the state. So some schools look really good and kind of look at it and go, I wonder how they're reporting that data or collecting that.
Any questions about elementary? Okay, thank you. I'll invite
Thank you all.
Thank you. I'll invite Danny up to share out a little bit about the middle school. And again, we will start with our academic data, focusing specifically on literacy through the lens of iReady. And Danny, if you want to just share some of the key findings?
Sure, under middle school. So key findings for iReady data and literacy, all grades 6th, 7th, and 8th, and more than 50% of students at or above grade level, which is great to see. 6th and 8th grade did show some growth for students at or above grade level compared to last year at this time, while the number of students in 7th grade decreased at 3 or more grade levels below, which is that red area which we want to shrink. Next steps, we are implementing focus groups during advisory. That started the second semester. That happens 3 times a week, help reach more students in addition to just intervention. And we will continue to utilize academic support after school and encourage students who could benefit from that to attend. And that happens Monday through Thursday.
We are fortunate at the middle school. We do at each grade level have a licensed reading teacher who does use a period of their day to be able to provide academic literacy support for our students who are of greatest need for that support. So the structure of that, I think, works really well to be able to have one at each grade level. On to the math iReady data profile.
Yeah, key findings in math, all grades again at 6th, 7th, and 8th, increased the number of students at or above grade level overall from fall to winter of this year. And then all grade levels also decreased the number of students at 3 or more grade levels below, which is in that red area. So next steps in math, our math departments, all 3 of our math teachers at the middle school got to go to a CPM training, which is a curriculum we use. And from that, so we've always used that, or we've used that training for the last couple of years, but it was kind of updated to bring more collaboration to the classroom, which we've seen more student engagement that way. And then that has increased our scores, which is great to see.
Much like the structure of our literacy, we also have a period where our math teachers offer intervention also to students who need that support.
And then we also use iReady incentives. Each grade level does their own. They get student input on that, and it really helps motivate middle school students. A lot has to do with some food, but also some trips here and there.
Food helps.
Yep.
Definitely. The next slide really just focuses on that academic intervention data. As we mentioned, we do offer intervention in both literacy and math at the middle school, and this one really just highlights the number of students that are being served during those intervention periods. It's always great to see them planning and collaborating together. They're always thinking ahead about what support can be provided to really set them up for success in the future courses, and I think you'll see that as you look through the key findings for both literacy and math. And we have worked, our literacy teachers work closely with Jill and I for some time, for some planning time. Last year, we were able to be part of a strengthening secondary readers academy with our middle school literacy teachers. So we're really just growing and expanding upon the learning that we did as part of that academy and continue to take that forward. Again, next slide really just focuses again on our special education, our English learner program, and our gifted and talented students, and the number of students that are serviced through each of those different programs. Again, tonight you saw there were lots of students who are part of that Noetic math competition, which is always fun to see, and clearly they were pretty excited about that. And then the last slide for middle school is the people service data.
And so what I'll highlight for this, that second bullet point under key findings, middle school is that age where we start to see that students are becoming more responsible for getting themselves to school, which is actually an exciting time for us because it allows us to be a little bit more creative with our interventions around attendance. That could be something as simple as getting a student an alarm clock who needs an alarm clock because they're responsible for being the one that's getting themselves up in the morning. We are able to create, sometimes buddy systems in the morning. So it just allows us to do a lot more, not that we don't still work with the parent, but the student a lot of times is kind of in the driver's seat of getting themselves to school, sometimes figuratively, sometimes literally. Next steps. So some exciting work. The first thing you'll see up there is the building leadership team at the middle school actually asked to make their focus improving that behavior management system. And so our Dean of Students, Paige, has done some really cool things already with taking some of those core components of the PBS framework, which obviously is the behavior management component of RTI, and bringing back some of those things that we know works without maybe looking at the portion of PBIS where it's the reward-based systems. We know who those work for, and they're not necessarily the students that we're always looking to target, but there are some really high-quality things based in the PBIS framework, and we're looking to work hard to bring a lot of those pieces back at the middle school and kind of serve as that model for hopefully bringing some of that framework back to our district. And then same thing, that second note there, adding to our advancement of the training.
Okay, if there are no questions about middle school, thank you, Danny. Phyllis,
Thank you.
talk about high school. The high school profiles look a little bit differently because we do not use the same measures to monitor our progress and growth. The high school, their first focus is on the number of, or the course pass rate, and I'll let Bill speak a little bit to that.
So this is what we live in every single week. This is the data I get every single week. This is what all our staff get every single week. A DF list. And when Randy and I started tracking the amount of classes passed, we were at about 96.2%, and that was in 21-22. So we set a goal of 97% of every single class that is taken needs to be passed. And if you forward just one more slide, we had an outlier. Our class of 2024, if you look on the bottom right of semester 1, 70% of those kids were on the honor roll. And some of them, they graduated. So we cannot use their data to make us look good anymore. So we were up to, we were up to about 98.8, I believe, at one point. So we did drop down a little bit this year, but I think that's a little more,
The course pass
I
rate.
guess,
There you go.
accurate of what we're gonna see moving forward. So that our pass rate for first semester was 97.4%. It is a tick down from last year and the year before that. We didn't do anything different, quite honestly. I think we had a nice class that graduated and impacted us.
Still not bad.
That's still pretty good.
Not at all.
And our staff works really hard to interview during advisory, tutoring after school, and during study halls, just working on those students with the DNF, bringing them into the classrooms during those 3 hours. And I'm gonna skip that slide because we kind of went over it. Pupil services data, I'm kind of stealing the thunder right here. Okay. Last year, same exact period, talking first semester, we had 270 behavior referrals. This year we have 181. All right, I'm not gonna blame that on our graduating class. I am going to give a shout out to Emmy for bringing developmental designs and the community that we have built and the culture that we have built in the high school, I think speaks to that number. We've had a couple of visitors that have stopped by the high school and remarked at how calm it is in our building. And I think a lot of that has to do with developmental designs, creating that community, creating community agreements as to how we will act in class. And not doing this when we need to address behavior. We look at the community agreement and say, hey, we agreed that this is how we are going to act. So there's less student versus teacher, button heads. And it's made a difference. It's not perfect, we're still working on it. We still have plenty of behavioral referrals, but compared to last year, we have 2/3 of what we had last year. That's pretty significant.
That's great.
Yep, that is great.
Is that a model that can be taken down to middle school or 8th grade
Yeah,
or
also-
seniors? Is that what you're
They're
thinking?
doing it in middle school as well.
Just a couple other pieces to highlight. The addition of our school social worker continues to help us, especially with students at this level. Carrie's expertise has allowed us to really bring some of those wraparound supports to our students and families. And so essentially that's a series of meetings that are regularly scheduled with a family or students who may need a little bit more of that support that we sometimes refer out as well. So it's been a really critical role to have, especially for our secondary students. A lot of focus again on attendance as we come up on things next year. Vince and I have talked a lot about just some things that we can do, especially for parents, because yes, there's more independence for our high schoolers to get themselves to school, and at the same time, we are having parents reach out and ask for help. So we want to see what we can do to provide more support for parents. They're looking for guidance from the school to say, what can I do, of course, and then same thing as always, just increasing those contacts home, increasing those in-person meetings to make sure that we can get students to school.
I will give a shout out to Emmy and especially to Vince.
Two in a row?
I know. Just say it. Our attendance probably about 3-4 years ago was about 92.5, and we are up 2.5% because of the extra work that they put in. So I appreciate.
Nice job.
I appreciate what they do.
Something that would be really interesting for the attendance figures would be to see how much of the attendance problem is limited to how many students, I mean,
Yeah.
we see it as an average across the thing, but I'm quite sure that there are, especially at the high school, I'm quite sure that there are certain students that are the bulk of the attendance problem, but it would be really interesting for us at some point to see that broken
At
down.
the end of the year, I do, if you'll remember, I do that, the behavior referrals are also really nice to see broken out because it's hard because we look at, on this report, we look at just straight number.
Totally.
So to Bill's point, behavior referrals at the high school, the number itself is still higher than it was last year, but if you pull out those, handfuls of individuals who rack up some of those numbers over time, that number actually, the referrals overall are down more this year. But I can do that with attendance as well. I want to be conscientious of what the data looks like, but I want to make sure that we're not doing too much demographic work to give anything away. But that would be a great data point to take a look at.
Is Crossroads considered in this as well?
Crossroads is, Hillside, our off-site school is not. Crossroads has kind of evolved its way into an additional program of Ripon High School, so that data is in here. I'm sorry, I meant to put an asterisk to note that. But we do pull out the Hillside data for that exact reason. It would be to identify those students in some ways, and also it would skew that data.
Sure.
Bill, can you explain again how the referrals are either up or down?
Sure.
I got
So
lost.
first semester last year, we had 270 referrals. This year, first semester, we have 181. So we have 2/3 of what we had last year
Okay,
during the exact same period. So here's what I'm gonna tell you. It takes at least a semester to get our freshmen to understand the Ripon way at the high school. So second semester data, we should almost, every year, we always have less referrals second semester.
I see.
Well, last week was the full moon, it was.
What constitutes a referral? What do you mean when you say a behavior referral?
Yeah, anybody who's written up by a teacher because of their poor behavior.
And there's an entire, there's,
Yeah.
well, and we continue to add, because what we've found is, I was gonna say there's an entire breakdown of what each behavior is. And that'll always be included in my end of year report too. So I put each of those types of, we call them types, behavior types. Gosh, I wanna say we're upwards of 40 now. And the reason that, so we, you know, if you go back, there was a point where we had maybe like 8. But the categories were so broad, and it would be something like disrespect. Well, when we pull that data and you see that, let's say 80 of the incidents at this point in the school year are disrespect, it's very hard without going through and reading, of course, each one and compiling the data. It's hard to know where do we intervene. What are we doing to intervene with something like that broad category disrespect? So over the course of the last, 3 or 4 years, we've really started to refine the data points that we need to make informed decisions about how we're intervening. Whether that's at the universal level with our teachers in developmental design, or whether that's at that even tier 3 level with our behavior interventionist support. But that'll always be included, those actual categories, so you can all see those at the end of year report, or if you refer back to last year's end of year report.
And that's in GD. That you received them. So that's all good questions.
Again, this last slide for the high school is just really highlighting our special education and English learner programs. One thing to note that we are excited about is we're bringing the Hillside Alternative Learning Program back to Ripon. That allows for some of our special education students to be able to start to merge back into Ripon High School settings. So that's been a really positive thing for our district, for sure. All right, so we will move on to Odyssey. Sam Benke is here to talk a little bit about our data at Odyssey. We'll start with literacy.
So our teachers have been working along with the Cox Campus modules as well. And then I'm kind of the Odyssey representative. I go to all of this morning I was with the rest of the district, and then I take that back to my team and work through the pieces that are applicable to them. But we saw a lot of growth from last year to this year. K through 3 all had a higher percentage of students this year that out-achieved the students from last year in those grade levels. And then even from window 1 to window 2, we had in most of our grades a 15% increase of students that were performing on or above grade level. So we were really happy to see that. Some of our next steps, we're going to continue working through the PRPs and we make tweaks to it to put it into a virtual setting because we don't have them in the traditional setting as the brick and mortars do. And then we've also been looking at ways to streamline the assessment similar to the brick and mortar. And right now that we know what Ames Web data gives us, what are some other pieces that we've been giving our students that we can kind of streamline and go away with, because now Ames Web gives us that data. And then I think that's it for literacy.
How do you ensure integrity with the testing for online students? Is there a way?
Yeah, so Ames Web is done 1-to-1 with the teacher and the student via Zoom. And so that's the same as it would be if you're sitting at a table with them. So we with iReady, we give all of the pieces to the parents of this is what we expect. We trust that they're being professional with it. So every once in a while we have to take a certain student score with a grain of salt, but now that we have Ames Web and previously BAS and ESGI, I would say for 90% of families, it matched.
correlates.
Yeah, so we're like, okay, there wasn't, every once in a while you get one that you're like, maybe, and the teacher has that conversation with the family and, let them try their best, here's some tips and tools to break it up. So my teachers are fantastic about having those conversations with parents, so.
Any questions about Odyssey? Okay, math profile for Odyssey?
Similar findings that, only grades 3 through 5 outscored students from last year. But from Windows 1 to 2, all of our grade levels grew, with the number of students that are testing on or above grade level. So we're excited to see that growth is happening. Some next steps, we've really been looking at how our structures include all of the reading interventions. So now how do we duplicate those same structures for math as well? And for several of our students, it's math and literacy that they need support with. So our teachers do a great job of when they have that student in front of them, they're kind of hitting 2 birds with 1 stone. And then also looking at, and working with Chrissy to see our core curriculum at the elementary level. Where are some places that we can better align to the needs of our staff and students as well as the Ripon priority standards. Just doing that yearly due diligence of looking at what we currently offer for our students and what pieces we can tweak and change. So.
Any questions about Odyssey? Thank you, Sam. I'll invite Travis and Ryan to come on up. We'll start with our technology profile. And Travis highlight some of the successes.
On my first slide, the one thing I want to kind of go over is towards the bottom. We did have some outages with Spectrum moving us to a new circuit. They closed down a hub in the area, so we had to visit each building at 6 in the morning to get them switched over, and they weren't as prepared as they should have been. So we did have a day where it kind of messed up some of my numbers here. We bled over maybe about into about the 8:15, 8:20 time frame in the morning, so we were down for just a little bit of school starting, so that kind of threw us off. I did have them come back, inventory everything on site before they came to do some of the other sites they were going to do so that we were more prepared. And that seemed to make things go a little bit smoother. So my numbers down below kind of changed a little bit. Some of my celebrations, we have all new MacBooks for the high school, and that has gone great. In fact, people that weren't too sure about switching over from a PC to a MacBook couldn't have been more excited after about 2 weeks. Devices just last. They work well, they last. In fact, talking with some vendors about schools that have gotten Chromebooks for their staff, they've said some of them have regretted it because they just haven't lasted and they don't work as well and they don't have some of the functionality. So I'm really glad with the direction we went. Something else we've gone with is an application Clever to create the student email accounts and provision them within all the software we use. So when a student is added to our student information system, their email address is created in Infinite Campus, and at that point, it creates all of their accounts for all of their applications. So when they show up, they get a Chromebook, they have their email, they log into it, and they are able to access all of their applications. The one thing we're still tweaking is there's the Clever landing site, the main homepage. The younger grades are using that, Murray Park and Barlow are using that. Middle school, high school, we're adding more of the applications there. They were used to just going to the pages. And so we've created shortcuts for them to use right now, but getting them to use that Clever page is kind of a big one for us. Some of the things we're kind of getting ready for is we're preparing for summer. We're getting ready for all the projects for summer, ordering new devices, updating some of the things we have here, and just kind of planning for our big projects that we do, as well as security. As you know, security. We're going to do some security awareness training with teachers, watching out for those phishing emails, things like that. I've got that scheduled. We are also looking at added security for student accounts. This is something that a lot of school districts have moved to throughout the state. I'm investigating it. I don't want to add more work for the younger students trying to get into their accounts, so that's my biggest thing that I'm kind of watching for, and they have some things in place to kind of make it a little bit easier for students when they're on site to have that extra layer of security but not slow things down. We went with the QR codes for the younger students, and I want to continue to kind of make it easier for them to get into the account and not add more, but yet be secure. They're just finding some of these bad actors are going after the student accounts and then getting farther in and in So that's kind of our biggest thing, is just planning for that, and then as usual, testing. Testing starts very soon, and so we will be racing around helping with testing and making sure everything goes well, so. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Brian, facilities.
So, facilities, it's been a busy time as always in facilities. Always looking at different things to do. Some of the big highlights, I brought quite a few memos to the board on some projects, and I'm happy to say we now have the air conditioner delivered at Murray Park. Today they were there working on piping. They should have almost the inside stuff completed, and hopefully be up and running by mid-March, at least for the classrooms. Depending on whether if they can, actually start it out. The air conditioning's also been ordered for the office area and specials at Murray, and they're hoping April, early May to get that done before we're in that peak moments. We've added a lot of cameras throughout the district. Updating cameras. We're really moving to web-based cameras and having more recognition and things like that, just to have that ability if we need to look up things or see things that are happening, having the ability to have coverage on all of our campuses. The other thing that we've done for the last, since 2020 is really revamping all of our buildings to LED and dimmable. This is our last building that we need to do. We're over 50% done. It's a huge building when you look at it compared to the elementary schools, but really, adding that environment to have that dimming ability, and having the teacher, set the tone of what the room looks like. Just looking, fitness lab, doing a lot of that updating in the fitness lab. If you haven't seen it, I'd love for you to see it with turf in there now, with the agility, and then really the new equipment that's put in there, so all of our students can use it, and it's well utilized. Actually, it's been a cleaning nightmare to try and get in there, just giving them all these abilities for our students to use, to maximize both in the classroom and outside the classroom. I think one of our biggest things that happened last summer was redoing St. Wenceslas Street, and re-adding, all of our stuff down there and trying to get that site, looking and presenting nice, getting that stuff done, and then facilities has, we've had when I started 7.5 years ago, I had a lot of people that were close to retirement age, so filling those positions, and I have an awesome staff of 14 full-time people and 6 subs that help me, and I couldn't ask for a better team. We've done a lot of training, we've done a lot of good things, and I always say I can't do it without my team. My team is my backbone. That help us with facilities. Just looking at things that I would love to accomplish. We've probably next month we'll probably have the office furniture coming in born for Barlow. Looking at continuing doing the lighting projects, which we're investigating, what do we do in the high school gym to, do something different in there, because that gym is pretty low lit, and just trying to add more of a game kind of experience. Let's have it for FIAD. Looking at replacing all the dead ash trees that we had. We've added a couple, but it's like I've taken out so many trees because they've all died, and just trying to get that stuff back into place. And then one of our big things, that we're gonna look at some point is our automation controls here at the middle school, high school. When the building was added, the new part was added onto the system, but a lot of it's from the 90s. And thankfully to the board, we've redone Barlow and Murray and updated all the digital controls and everything for those buildings, and they work great. This building, we're gonna have some some expenses coming out, but really sitting in a good place. I've always said I feel like I'm moving from a reactionary phase to a proactive. We're able to get some things done and really protect things so they don't fail. And, my list of opportunities for growth, I mean, I could probably have 10 pages of things I would love to do, but these are kind of some of the items that we want to get off our list of, things that we want to get done. One of my biggest things, this year, I'd love to figure out how we can address the middle school gym and replace those bleachers that really are end of life that need to be replaced, So with that, I thank you for your support on the projects and your belief in what facilities has been doing.
I have a silly question, kind of. So, is there a plan to paint the middle school gym?
That is, so those,
I thought
both those.
Features, maybe it was gonna happen or something.
Yeah, so both of those have been items that I think I've been talking about since I started that would be our next area that we'd love to make welcoming like, the rest of the building has. That part of the building just never got touched with renovations, for the original renovations. And I would love to have that gym painted, and I've actually had several meetings with Danny already of what do we want it to look like, because we need to make a gym that they want to be there, so.
It's a beautiful space. So those kind of things that Brian's talking about, because it's
Right.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
And lots to
Thank you.
celebrate. We appreciate all the things that our administrators do and our teachers and you, of course, to help make that happen.
You too, Chrissy, thank you. Thank all of you.
So a couple of things within the past month. First, FBLA had regionals in Sheboygan Falls. That was the 1st of February. 35 people qualified from regionals, so advanced to state, and then 13 people did qualify for state, so that is a good amount. And then, I know I talked about this at the last meeting, we had the Cupid Shuffle Dance, which was then the 8th, the next weekend. And I think there were a little less than 100 people, so obviously we weren't expecting to show up as homecoming, because that is way more popularized, I guess, but still a good amount of people that went and attended. We had FBLA week this past week, so that was fun. There were a couple of dress-up days and social events. And then also last week we had the musical. It was Little Women, and then there were 4 shows Thursday, Friday, and then 2 on Saturday. We went during school, and I thought it was personally good. And then I've only heard good words about it, so I know they were all putting a lot of time into it, and you could tell it paid off. This upcoming week, we have FFA week, so there's more dress-up days for that, and I'm not certain about activities-wise. Also, the juniors have been offered ACT practice that is on Saturdays, and I think a good chunk of kids have been taking advantage of that too, so to prepare them for the ACT. I also know both teams for basketball, I think their seasons are looking better than it first started off, so it's also good news. And then that's all I have.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Great job. Thank you. Yes, thank you.
All right, we'll move on to action items. New business. The first one is consider approval of the bookkeeper job description. Is there a motion to approve the job description? All right.
I'll second.
Any discussion, any questions, comments? All right. Call for the vote. Go. Anybody have any buttons? Because I don't.
Yeah, I vote.
I vote.
All right, then I'll have to rejoin you. All right, passes unanimously. Now consider approval of the 5-year athletic uniform purchasing agreement with Under Armour. Is there a motion to put this on the floor?
So moved, Gary.
Thank you, Mary. Second?
I'll second again.
Questions or comments?
Just have a question. Will any of, I mean, I read through all the memo and all of that, but are there any costs at all that are passed on to the students or things?
No.
Or it's all?
That was assured,
Oh, okay,
but that was
okay,
not.
That's great.
That was
including shoes and everything?
correct, yeah.
Have we normally done business with Baggage Sporting Goods? Or is this the first time?
We've been doing it since I've been here, so the last 2 years. Yes, we've been doing a lot of business with Better Sporting Goods. Keeps everything here in Allison, Wisconsin, so a little bit nicer, a little bit easier to work with.
So the college works with
Pardon?
the college works with Badger.
Yeah.
Pretty much exclusively.
There's one reason why I asked, because some of the coaches want to stop.
They want to?
They want to stop. But as long as our experience has been good, that's fine.
Yes.
All right, let's call for the vote. And that also passes unanimously. Consider approval of the transfer of Inglesfield assets from the Ripon Education Foundation to the district. Is there a motion to put this on the floor?
So moved. Denise?
I'll second.
Discussion.
Do you have anything about that? The Education Foundation?
Well, nothing probably beyond what you have already in front of you.
So that is initiated or?
So is this considered like a non-profit to non-profit 501c3 process? Is that why it's?
But we're a nonprofit, so I think just previous individuals who were part of Ripon Education Foundation felt very strongly that to grow the scope of the foundation, any dollars in the district should flow through them. And so then, as we were gaining these for Inglesfield, it seemed natural to kind of hold them, house them there. But it really actually creates more work for them, for us to do that, than for us to stay home. And for our business office to be able to use them and distribute them.
But from an accounting standpoint, this type of transfer is?
Correct, it's.
And just to add one thing, like currently, it's considered an asset of the Ripon Education Foundation, and now it'll be an asset of the district, so that accounting wise, it is a little different, and so it'll be on our books, and but they actually proposed this idea, and we're like, yeah, we'll get interest on the savings, so there's nothing, it's a win-win.
Yeah.
Were they getting interest on the savings before, or was it just savings?
I don't know exactly what they do with the interest, but I think it goes toward their scholarship funds and things like that. It all goes back to the district in one way or another, but it wasn't growing the assets that were for Inglesfield. It wasn't growing there.
So that'll be the big difference. Before it was just growing funds that might have been used, that were used for the district, but might have been used for anything. Now with us, it's good that interest is going to stay in Inglesfield funds.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right, you may vote. And that passes unanimously. Consider approval of Fund 46 project. The project is to replace Marine Park Elementary cafeteria tables. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second? Discussion. So basically, this is all about getting rid of benches and having individual seats. That's the major issue here, right?
And there will be uniform throughout the district.
Makes a huge difference. Anything else? All right. Vote. Also passes unanimously. Personnel, consider approval to increase an Odyssey Academy middle school teacher position from half-time FTE to 0.7 FTE for the rest of the school year. Is there a motion to put this on the floor?
So moved.
Okay, second.
I'll second.
Denise. Questions or discussion?
I just have more of a common question. So I'm assuming some of this cost is offset by the FTEs that we get from the state, like the funding for FTE, so it's not, because we have more students.
Yes.
We're already collecting that.
Yeah, it is kind of a weird, it is kind of a weird thing because we're talking about, doing FTE reductions district-wide, but Odyssey's kind of a district within the district. It has its own revenue agreements, and they hold on to the majority of their revenue, and they have the revenue to do this with the new enrollments that they've had.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right. You may vote. It passes unanimously. Okay, so this is the consent agenda. Is there any item on the consent agenda anyone wants to remove? If not, I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second, Josh. Gary. And you may vote. Consent agenda is approved. So, possible upcoming action items. The first one is to consider approval of Inglesfield tennis court rental fee. Discussion.
I wasn't clear how we're going to collect this while still leaving the courts open and the public can use the courts whenever they usually.
Actually, I have a modification of that question. If I can do that. So I'll ask mine first and then you can deal with Betsy's. So my question is, are we going to continue to allow facilities to be used by the public? So people go run on the track, they use fields, they use the tennis courts.
Even the
I
building
think it's
itself
walking
addressed
that. I think it's this isn't a new, we always had this. This isn't new. We wanted to add the tennis courts because we haven't had those on. If an organization would come to us and say, we want to use your facilities, so we would continue to operate as we always have. But we felt it was important to clarify that if there's a, youth sports or something, and they need to use it as part of their program, it's allowable as long as it's not, a large organization that's actually separate from the school district. We've had professional football teams that have wanted, semi-pro teams that have wanted to use the grounds, and that's really important to kind of monitor those things.
So for the public, we can go.
We always have been, until we always would.
Right, yeah, and you just walk on and use it, so back to the question, if the public can just walk on and use it,
Well,
why?
we have cameras, so if it becomes an issue, we have the ability to do that. But yeah, there was an organized, group that was coming on, a private group that was coming on to use our facilities in a very organized way. That's not something that would be allowed. They would need to schedule it and.
Okay, so that would apply to the regularly scheduled pickleball use?
Yeah, that's what I just said too.
No.
That's a community group.
That's a community.
Yeah, we were just saying organized practices, organized matches, and classes that are put on by a large institution, they should, pay us a rental fee because they're using our facilities. And there has been, entire teams that have used, for the whole season have used the tennis courts. So just trying to make sure that we have something written down.
Right, so if we don't, for example, have an agreement with the college The tennis courts have never been a part of that agreement. Now, if they're out of everything else, we would expect them to be paying a rental fee if they're gonna schedule practice and meets on the.
Do we have like a calendar, like the college has a calendar for the field house, do we have that? Okay. Guess I've never looked at it. Is it on the district website?
Yeah, and we can use it for all of our sports as well. So, it's our East Central Conference website, and if you go on there, it has every single practice, every single facility used throughout the whole entire year. Actually, there's an app that we use as well, it's called the Activity Scheduler, and if you just download it and use that, it has everything out of even transport meeting, for example, because it's a facility use, so.
And I think it's endearing to be in a small community, and every once in a while, you have someone call and say, who was the group in this field house? You can say, yeah, it wasn't our friend's group. They were there for a reason. And I think our communities are really done a wonderful job. If they don't know the schedule and they go there and they see that there's a group organization and they bring it up, and that's been really interesting.
Any other discussion? Anybody? All right, we'll see that next month.
Thank you.
Superintendent reports.
Legislative updates, but we do have a search update that I would go back to you.
Okay, so superintendent search, so the application period ends on March 7th. We were informed by the search group that probably we could expect the majority of applications to come in at the very end. So the end of February and the beginning of March is really what we're expecting. Currently, we have 4 applications that have been received. And they're expecting us to have around 15 or so applications at their guess. But they also had told us in advance that they wouldn't probably come in until much closer to the deadline. Tomorrow is a big day. They'll be here in the district with focus groups. And then next Monday is another big day. They'll be back in the district. And there is a virtual focus group, the date of which I can't remember.
It's Sunday evening.
That anybody can also attend. So that's the engagement part, and after that we should see posted the results of the surveys and things like that. So that's where we stand right now. Everything's moving at about the speed that they indicated it would move. And we just now wait until we get the information from everybody put together and the applications taken.
We had interviews with the board, that's part of that.
Right, every board member has been one-on-one with the search firm, except for me.
Oh.
Wednesday morning at 7:15, I'm going to be meeting. So that piece has been done, and tomorrow we'll take care of both of different groups here. So it's moving along.
Survey's open today as well.
That's right, today was the opening day for the survey.
Is that what you pointed out? That's what I thought. That's great. Great way to grab some people while they were here.
All right, teaching and learning reports. Any questions or comments about the curriculum highlights? Or does Chrissy get to stay where she's sitting?
There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
All right. We'll give Joan a chance. Any questions about the interim budget report? For the food service. Everything's running pretty much as expected. Any comments or questions about the highlights from all those schools?
Thank you as usual, everyone who does that.
excused. You want to sit at this table?